I want to move straight on because these guests are waiting in the wings tonight, and I appreciate them coming in early. My next guest has also an amazing story and a life-changing story. He is an advocate for self-determination from Flint, Michigan. I'd like to bring in Eric Patrick Thomas, Mr. Inspire. I like it.
Yeah. Good evening.
We'll start with that, actually. Mr. Inspire, you have a brand called Inspire. So I'm going to let you speak to your story because it's going to be probably a long one. Well, not a long one, but an interesting one is what I'll say, which I want you to arrive at the end of the story, how you became Mr. Inspire.
Okay, just make sure to cut me off so you can ask me questions because I could talk for a long time too. Actually, it was 23 years ago. So 23 years ago, hip hop artists, we were celebrating our music project, my group called Miscellaneous. And I went outside to check the parking lot just to make sure that everybody was like over on our side, not in my neighbor's yards, and just making sure things were good. And then I was going back into the house and I was right by the steps. And then someone came around the DJ van or was in the parking lot, pulled a gun and opened fire. Instantly, I got hit with a bullet in my third and fourth vertebrae, and that dropped me to the ground. And I was paralyzed right away from the neck down, and also not being able to breathe on my own, or able to like speak or yell or ask for help or anything. So I just laid there while I could hear the chaos, going on around me, not being able to do anything, and kind of going in and out of consciousness at the same time. One of the great things is that there was a person at the house, at the party that was taking EMT classes, and he did come out and stabilize me until the ambulance got there. And then, of course, you go from that scene to the hospital, and I can still remember the 4 screws being drilled into my skull, which is for the halo, which is going to stabilize the spine, because they didn't do any surgery. They just put the screws into my skull for the halo to stabilize it, and then they put tubes in my throat. But by that time, I was there, I was not there, I was numb. I was in so much pain that it was numb pain. And then the tubes down my throat, because I remember chomping on them. And then before you know it, you're waking up. It's in the morning time. I don't remember what time it was when I was waking up, but then I was faced with my mom and stepdad and dad and stepmom and other people surrounding and doctors, and then them telling you, what happened, which you already knew, but now you're hearing it again, and you're trying to just figure it all out while you're still surviving, and then you're trying to move, and then that's where you realize, like, why am I not moving my arms? Why are my legs, like, what's going on? And then that's all being explained at the same time. A lot of things are going on at one time, a lot of emotions, a lot of questions. It's like a snowball of emotions, chaos, and struggle and survival, and that's kind of like where it starts, and then at that time I couldn't speak. I could move my mouth, and then I communicated with eye blinks. So blink once for yes, twice for no. And then eventually I learned how to communicate with tongue clicks. And I think I didn't do the tongue clicks until like after they decided that, with the test that is paralysis, is very high, he's going to have to go on a ventilator, the life support ventilator. So that's when they gave me the tracheotomy. That's where they cut your throat and put the tube into your trachea, and basically you got this machine that breathes for you. And yeah, and then I think after that might have been a couple weeks since the shooting. That's when I finally was able to eat food. And then I could move my mouth, but there was no audio of it though. So if you ask me a question, I could at least say it with my mouth, and you just have to lip read. And then
You're right. I'm not trying to interrupt you. I'm just trying to be here. So
no, it's all good.
It's
stop me wherever you want to stop me.
Look. I think that I have a couple of questions that have come up, so I will ask them. I was just waiting. I wanting to continue. If I should bring myself back in, it will be to ask a question, but don't let me stop you. Sorry about the distraction. But look, I want to ask a question first. Was that perpetrator known to you?
No, we actually don't even know who did it. There really wasn't ever a real investigation. I just received the incident report this year when we were in COVID, locked down from COVID. It just happened to be that my mom was with one of our family members, and that family member was with a person in law enforcement, and they were like, he doesn't even have a police report. And then there's a lot of police officers like, what? No police report, that's impossible. And so they did do some digging. They got an incident report, and I do have that. And basically, all it says is, what time it happened, who was there or not who was there, the detective or the police officer on scene, and the detective that took the case. But that's it. It's only like a half a page, well, a page and a half of incident report. Nobody questioned, nothing. So there's no real full out investigated police report. So no, we don't know. Just a big question mark. So that's kind of been
23 years ago. You were in a hip hop group. So in that era, there was a lot of people that could have been anything, mistaken identity. There was a lot of rivalry between musicians and hip hop of that era. I'm not sure what part of the world you were in at the time, but wrong place at wrong time probably sounds like that. And no investigation is intriguing, given the result, which is now that you're paralyzed from the neck down. I understand is what your bio has indicated. So I want to ask you, because we're talking, as you heard, I was talking with Chris before about life-changing things, and his getting out of Iraq and being in the convoy as opposed to a helicopter that actually had crashed and killed everyone. You survived a gunshot wound, but how does the emotions play on over the period of time? It's 23 years now, to know how close you came to not being here, but also did you go through the stages of anger and anything like that from the experience and the asking of why me?
I wouldn't say that it was anger. Definitely you have the questions like, why me, or what's going on? Why did they do it, or who did it? I know based on one of my friends, Perm, that was in my group Miscellaneous, later on down the road, a few years later, we were doing some filming, and that question was asked to him, was he angry, or how is he? So the same question you just asked me, I got to hear it from him. But he said that he said bitter, but his answer to that was because I kept talking about when we would talk to each other, I would say, have you heard anything? Do you know what happened? So he was saying that he didn't want to keep reliving the moment because he didn't he was in shock from the night it happened, because he was maybe 10 feet in front of me when it happened, if that. But he was saying that he was using that word bitter, or just by saying that I kept bringing up the event. But all I wanted to do was just know, like, was there anything? Have you heard anything? Did anybody say anything? So it was that with my emotions in hospital and rehab, you're gonna go through every emotion. You're like, tears are gonna come down from you, and you're not even gonna understand why. Going to rehab, leaving the state of Michigan and going to Inglewood, Colorado, I was like totally against. I didn't want to leave Michigan, and I don't know why. It was just because that's the nature inside, I guess. And you're gonna have every emotion. You're gonna have happiness. You're gonna have nightmares. You're gonna have struggles, wondering why, and then you're also going to be like, "What am I gonna do now? Like, I gotta move forward, so I gotta keep going. Like, this is it. I want to survive." So the decision's made. Survival is already the main decision. So whatever it's gonna take on this path and journey, then you have to face. And you're gonna have different emotions from the start. 2 years later, 3 years later, 23 years later. Now, when the time was coming up, all you do is kind of reflect and just think about, like, oh, tonight I would have been getting ready for the party, or getting my hair cut, getting the clothes. Like, you kind of replay that. But then you also say, well, how can I celebrate this with everybody? Like, celebrate life and utilize that story and tell them. That's how I started that goal, for 23 different, interviews on different shows for the rest of the end of the year. I thought that's a good way to celebrate.
Because I saw your post that it was the 1st of October was 23 years. So, or the
October
post
20th.
Oh, October 20th. So it's coming up.
September 20th.
Sorry, misunderstood. So it is 23 years, and you did reach out, and I think you've got an amazing story, because the story doesn't actually stop with a tragedy, as far as life-changing medical injury. I don't know if I'm describing that right at all, but that's but for you talk about survival, and you took that on took it as the challenge that it is, and you've changed your life around. Now you've spoken to Congress, you've spoken to as an advocate for self-determination. So do you want to speak to that journey? And then let's talk about, you're a businessman too. You could have just just potentially decided that I'm not capable of doing anything, but you've gone the other way and said, I'm going to make change, and real change for people and myself. So I know I keep packing things into the questions, but let's talk to, your role as an advocate and why that's important, to use your adversity to better the lives of others.
It's a great question. When I came home, I didn't have to go to a nursing home. I went back to my mom and stepdad's house, which was a blessing, because a lot of people end up in nursing homes. Right away, your journey starts. And when you start learning the resources around you, so you're like, okay, I have a disability, and these are the resources around. And one of the places was called the Disability Network. And I was able to meet up with the CEO at that time, Mr. Zelli. And when we had our meeting, he was basically like, I know you might not believe it, I'm 20 years old now. I'm pretty, I'm trying to figure out life. And he's like, you'll be able to accomplish whatever you want to do. Like, you might not believe it now, but you'll be able to do whatever you want to do and accomplish what you want to do. So he was pretty believable. So I was like, all right, man, let's roll with it. Now this time I can talk by now. And he set me up with being able to hire my own staff. So I was able to hire my own caregivers, direct my caregivers, do the schedules, do the interview process, the whole thing. My whole life became a business, like overnight, just a business of my life. I'm the CEO of my life, basically. That's what happened. And he said also, just make sure, like, you have a great story, get involved, testify, if there's some cuts that are going to happen with like Medicaid or Medicare or long-term care or whatever it may be that's going to lessen the life of a person's quality of life, then if you will be willing to talk, we'll get you there. And so that was kind of like the learning of this advocacy. I would say that the training grounds was definitely with the Disability Network. They would have the long-term care meetings. They would bring in legislators. I would talk to them. Now, right at the beginning, they just know the story. But see, I started talking to them so much, different areas. I started showing up. They started knowing my story, my face, and then they started to think about the decisions that they made when they thought about like my life and other people's lives, which is what you want them to do. And so you start building this relationship at the same time you're building this advocacy, and you're learning about like assistive technology. You're learning about the ADA, and you're learning about your rights, and you're it's all a learning process. This is a growing and learning process as you're living, as you keep living. You show up to meetings, you show up to long-term care meetings, you show up to Medicaid and Medicare meetings, like wherever they were having them, you just show up and you start learning and you start learning and you start learning and you start learning. And then eventually there was this other organization called Michigan Partners for Freedom, and they focused on self-determination. And they went out and basically like demanded that we have self-determination living in these communities and stuff, which is a person that could live independently and have caregivers and have the best quality of life ever, based on the resources, which is also funded by Medicaid and Medicare dollars. But we were also responsible on how that money was spent. So this advocacy just kept going. I mean, and then eventually there was times that I was able to go to Lansing and speak at the Capitol in front of the House and Senate and be able to share my story and how I was able to keep living a really amazing quality of life because of these services that was provided, that it is possible and it does work. You don't always have to put people in nursing homes. You don't have to put people in institutions. And then eventually there was times that I could go to Washington, D.C. and go speak there and learn the whole, like how you get bills, sponsored or co-sponsored and then introduced on the floor and then voted on. We met with Congressman Dale Kildee and another guy named Dave, and we basically told him we just pitched our life off, to him. And he took that information and he made a bill called Money Follows the Person, and it passed. And there's like billions of dollars that now it's brought to this country for people to get out of nursing homes and live independently. And they still vote on it today. I think it was voted this year to, keep it going. It's called Money Follows the Person.
You're right. I keep distracting you.
No, it's all right. It's okay.
So that's pretty amazing that you have done that. So one of the things that, and it's just because life is so full of questions, and obviously we alluded to the fact that you do ask those questions when something extremely adverse happens to you. But do you sometimes feel like what happened to you is actually your purpose, that now you are here to do this? Is it like, do you feel this is a life purpose, that there's actually, or do you think you've given meaning to what's happened?
That's a good question, because I've heard sometimes where somebody said it didn't happen to you, it happened for you, or something like that. Because like so many people's lives have changed based on the situation that happened. Like the shooting that happened, this ripple effect of like quality of like progress and empowerment and resilience and inspiring, changes like happen. It's just been amazing. I've been asked the question before, if you could, go back in time and change it, what would you do? And I was like, I would do the exact same thing, because like there's so much change that's happened and so much good. I mean, being able to get that bill sponsored and pass has affected they know thousands and thousands of lives, probably more lives than I'll ever really know. The same thing with speaking and testifying somewhere, whether it's a school or a church or a jail, or just at the retail store where somebody asks me like what happened, because it turns into a full-blown story. Like you don't know whose life you changed, whose life you saved. There may be a person that was about to commit suicide, and somehow what you said changed it. You won't There's a lot of people's lives that you're never going to know that you were a positive influential impact on them. So it's pretty amazing.
Yeah, I wondered that, because I feel like when I speak to people about their passion or their perspective or their truth, when they seem to find a passion or a purpose, it sort of feels like a jigsaw puzzle falling into place, that all the pieces were relevant at the time. They didn't feel so, but when they look at what they're doing with that information that they have now, so the experience that they have now, it also that saying that things, you can either let it happen to you or it's happening for you, is a mindset thing. So I guess what I was alluding to was that a mindset, this whole perception that you're not going to be defeated by this, that you can play the victim or the victor, as they say, and you chose to play the victor's role and make something better of a bad situation.
Yeah, I mean, the mindset, you're split in the beginning. You're like, okay, it could be long term, could be short term. You watch movies. Well, how is it going to be? But your focus, your goal is to live life, no matter what those circumstances, challenges, barriers, the ups and the downs, whatever it is, you're just going to keep pushing forward. And, you're going to take 20 steps forward and 30 steps backwards and 10 steps forward and 20 steps back. It's a back and forth thing. The main thing is that you get back up and you keep going and you keep going and you got the goals. Like the thing is that like at that time, did I know like, oh, I'm going to be able to accomplish all these goals? I got all these goals and that's what's pushing me forward. There wasn't like a lot of goals, but the more and more that you keep living and the more you know that you have more freedom because you have people that are taking care of you, and you're able to like really start to focus. Then you start focusing on a lot of goals. And then you got all these goals and you're like, okay, I had goals and dreams, but now they're actually, I can, pursue them still. Same thing with when the shooting happened. Like I had so many different goals and like dreams that I wanted to still accomplish. It felt like it was unfinished. So I was like, I need to stay here a little longer. There's some work that needs to be done. Now it wasn't like I went from one stage to the other stage, except this stage I was able to now work with people with disabilities and actually have probably more of an impact than what I was doing when I was on the stage doing hip hop music at that time, because this was changing lives. This was empowering people. I don't know. It's like you said, the pieces of the puzzle, they're still falling in place, 23 years later. And everything you learned then, it happens years later. Something you learned 10 years later, you implement 15 years, down the road. You're like, wow, that's why I learned that, So it's a journey.
So let's talk about this journey. Just on screen, I've thrown it up there for you.
Yeah.
Easy Awareness by Design is your business. So
yes,
not
sir.
only are you an advocate, you actually have to earn an income. You are contributing to society and others. And you've started this brand, and you've started this business, and people can visit the website and they can purchase your Inspire brand. And interestingly, this is a saying that's, I'm pretty sure, up on the website actually. Might just see if I can throw that website up.
Without awareness, you're invisible.
There we go.
Yeah.
So very, very inspirational stuff. You also inspire Flint. So Flint's not known as one of the most prosperous places in the US. And also you've got, I think the world knows, with thanks to Michael Moore, who is a long-term resident there as well, that your water system in that part of the world is not the best. So you guys battle every day. So not only are you born and raised in Flint, Michigan, you're inspiring people, not just across the US, but Flint obviously is your hometown. So you're also, as people can see there, promoting the Inspire Flint brand as well. So what's with the guitars? I didn't see that. So that might interest Chris, who's still sitting as a guest. So
we
explain.
have like over 200 different designs of Inspire now, and it just every day it just kind of builds this new branch to this tree where it started, because it's the people that embrace the Inspire lifestyle, which is called a lifestyle changing the world. They embrace that, and you're like, wow, I didn't, it still sticks with the same focus and it's positive, but they take it on into this new branch. Someone wears it for they're going through chemo treatment or something. Somebody's wearing it because they're going through a dialysis treatment, or somebody just really is inspired by someone and they gift somebody something, or they just feel really good about themselves and like they want to be better and they're bringing out the best in them and they wear it and they're like, I know this brand, because it all goes back, as what they say, back to the original person of the brand, which is me. And a lot of times when people see that shirt, they'll say, oh, Eric, they'll be in a different state. Like at the airport, they'll be like, hey, Eric. They'll be like, yeah, I know Eric. And so the story is the brand. You are the story. I mean, you are the brand, but everybody else is making the brand, just amazing, bigger and growing. And that was a childhood dream. Having my own clothing line, that's basically where it all, came from. Breaking this childhood goal, it's 20 something years later, 25, I forget now, like 15 years later or something like that.
So that's very amazing, and it's something very simple. Your brand Inspire, but what you're basically saying is to people, regardless of what area or what your background is or what your adversity is, you all have the ability, or we all have the ability, to make each other's lives better and inspire others to make the most of their lives. And that's exactly what you've done as an example of it. So to own that brand. So Mr. Inspire, as you had, I think
that's what people that happened because people just started saying that. So instead of them just saying, hey, Inspire, like Tony, my friend Tony would always say, hey, what's happening, Mr. Inspire? Our nicknames are, they just kind of take on their thing. I was like, okay. So, and then when I was doing, I'm doing hip hop music again, because this foundation called the D-Man Foundation, they built the first ever barrier-free music therapy recording studio. So then I was able to go back and do music again. So they were like, what are you going to call yourself? And then everybody just started calling me Mr. Inspire. So I was like, oh, I guess so. Let's go with that. I guess it is kind of, it was with the people are the ones that kind of said it,
That's
so
cool. Yeah, it's cool. It's what's needed. So well done for suggesting that as well. And I did put up there this saying, and it's interesting. I saw it's like, without awareness, you are invisible. And this comes back to advocacy. And I will have to finish up on this, as I have a patient guest, and I've gone over time because I've had two amazing guests today already, and looking forward to the next guest who's waiting in the wings. But this, without awareness, you are invisible. Interestingly, there's a marketing 101 term that says not advertising is like winking in the dark. No, you know what you're doing, but no one else does. So without awareness, you are invisible. So I know with what my first guest, Chris Lozano, has done, he is giving voice to the experience of veterans there in the US. And basically that's the same statement can be said true of what the work he's doing to inspire others, which is anyone looking to work to inspire others. It's true. Without awareness, you or your cause is invisible. So I really appreciate you being here today, Eric. I really am grateful for you sharing your story and for giving your time to me and my audience. I wish you all the best, and I hope to hear some of your music down the track. Have you got anything up at the moment?
There's a song on Spotify right now, SoundCloud, called "Beat My Belly Like a Bongo." beat my
Beat my
belly like
bongo.
beat my belly like a bongo. In fact, if you Google that, it's the only song that's ever called that. So I'm the only person.
I'm
The
sure
only
it
person that it's basically like, you remember back in the day when you played belly drums?
was. Yes.
That's kind of like where it goes back from, except there was food that was dropped on my shirt. And then when Jesse was cleaning my shirt off, it sounded like a bongo. And so I just started thinking that jingle. And then that Saturday, my friend came over and said, I got time to to do some production. What do you want to do? And I was like, well, I got this jingle in my head. And he was like, yeah, let's roll with it. And then that's how Beat My Belly Like a Bongo came out. And I performed it a lot in different places, like all over the different, like, it's very interesting. It's a fun song. I enjoy writing it, or, like, in performing it. I'm not worried about people liking it, because it makes me happy. It puts me into the place that I like. I've always liked music. I like hip hop. I like wordplay, and it's enjoyable to me. You know, and I don't care if somebody says they don't like it. I'm great with that. I say thank you. Thanks for
Yeah.
telling me. Or something. It's okay. I made it because I just wanted, something I enjoy.
I hope you liked this episode. If you did, please give it a thumbs up and feel free to comment. If you haven't yet subscribed, hit the subscribe button and the notification bell to be advised of new interviews when they're uploaded. I hope you join us again sometime. Catch you later.